So Westside Gunn just released the Side B to Hitler Wears Hermes 8. Side A came out not too long ago, but it was cool to see how he was going to roll out this album because you got Side A, you had some time to digest it, now we finally got Side B, and there's a lot of interesting features, there's a lot of interesting producer credits, guys, so welcome to our review and reaction of Hitler Wears Hermes 8 by Westside Gunn. I've been waiting for this album, man, and guys, we do albums a bit different here, especially when it comes to reviews, because we don't necessarily go by the same criteria as everyone. We kind of break it down on our own thing. So we go by artist performance, we go by content, then we have producing, then we have features, and then of course we have instant replay value, where we talk about, is this album gonna stick through our rotation? And instead of giving a numerical system, so a 7 or an 8, we go on feelings based on what we feel about the album. So we go from bad, we have mid, we have good, we have great, we have amazing, and then we have perfect. So this is quite interesting, man. We have over 30 tracks in this combined project. How do you feel, and how did you like it, being separated in two versions?
I think it's interesting that Westside Gunn wants to tackle a double-sided album. I think that's super artistic of him, and it's a lot to digest. There's a lot in this. There's a lot of snippets, interludes, and vocal passages, and a lot of them do have meaning. But to me, I was excited going into this because this is probably the most anticipated underground release of the entire year. So before we actually kick things off, guys, let us know in the comments what you think of this new Westside Gunn album, and also leave your scores for every category the same way that we actually rate them. We want to see your ratings too. So let's start off with the artist performance, and I think that when you're looking at Westside Gunn, you have to learn to love his style and his cadences, because his performances are always super colorful. You have his high-pitched, cartoonish voice, and honestly, with the performance, he's kind of painting these vivid pictures of his everyday life. And honestly, there are a ridiculous amount of ad-libs with the boom, boom, booms and the brr, brr, and it's something that's kind of always been known for Westside Gunn, and you grow to love it as you listen to his stuff.
And I have grown to love it throughout this project, because regardless, even if there's fucking like 45 plus tracks, I'll never get bored of those ad libs. And overall, though, I do think that the only gripe I have with this project when it comes to Westside Gunn's performance is the fact that it's nice. I love that signature flow from Westside Gunn, but I mean, listen, you got 30 tracks on this.
Yeah.
Like, there's no changing it up at any point.
There's a couple of flow switches,
but I mean, for the amount of content that we're getting on the side A and the side B, nothing too crazy, and it didn't feel as if Westside Gunn was pushing boundaries anywhere. But for the most part, you already know it's a lock, and he's going to be safe when he's rapping. Like, this guy does not stop, and he's always coming together with these witty coke bars, and he's coming together, giving you this vivid storytelling, or talking about his Dior goggles. Like, he's really about, mixing that coke rap with the fashion lane, and also giving you a bit of mogul talk, because this guy is not only a great rapper, but he is great at curating albums and having other content creators come on his album. So the fact that he's able to go with all of these artists, and the fact that he's able to have such strong chemistry with all of these artists and have it sound so coherent is super impressive to me, and gained that, it was a solid W for me on the album.
It was. And speaking of those collaborators, to be totally 100% honest, as much as I do enjoy a lot of the performances from Westside Gunn, I like the way that he's able to change the rhythm of his flow during a verse, and just for one line and then go back to the other flow, just to kind of be goofy and quirky with the flow. I feel like that looseness in verses,
the confidence,
it's super compelling. I do enjoy that, but I will say that to me, every feature outshines him. And he actually spoke about this during an interview, I think, for Complex, and he says that, like, when I ask artists to come on my songs, I hope that they outshine me. I hope that they actually body me, because he's more about that curation. He's more about making the best music possible. And I think he knows his lane. I think that he knows what he's able to do and kind of where the caps are. And you don't really get anything much of an evolution from him sound-wise here. It's kind of the Westside Gunn that, we kind of grow to love. What's cool, though, is that his hooks kind of stay constant. It's kind of that style where he draws out the same vocal note at the end of a rhyme and kind of tries to be melodic with it, and you see that on songs like Mariota. Apart from that, he also has some funny bars, and that's what kind of keeps you engaged, is how playful he is with his wordplay. And one of them is when he's talking about walking into a bank, and the bank teller, the way that he describes it is, "Bank bitch called me handsome." Like, just witty bars like that keep my interest up. So overall, honestly, I was pretty happy with this, and I would say that it was a good performance from Gunn.
It was a good performance from Westside Gunn, because he's never gonna, outshine anyone on his own projects. It's more of a thing where he'll only add a verse or two in certain instances, and even at this, like, I don't think there's many songs where he has double verses. Like, it's mostly one plugged in verse, and then after that he's collaborating with a different artist. And I also love the way that he was able to write some new Derringer beats and some new Alchemist beats. Like, even like there was some great ways that he was able to captivate you into the whole production. But I mean, overall, yes, it was a good
Does his voice
rating.
get annoying for you? I want to ask you that.
I mean, the thing is that if you're listening to it, side A and side B back to
It's a
back,
lot.
it's a lot. But I mean, if you're going track by track, no, I don't think so. I
Okay.
think that his signature style and his signature flavor is just too unique to be annoying
Facts.
to a certain extent. And I mean, it's carrying the underground at this point. So for me, it was a
to
big
me,
W.
it kind of always reminded me when I first listened to that list of like a whiny kid at the playground who wants to like play with your toys. Like, that's kind of always how I thought
like
about it. But once his sound clicked for me, I'm like, you know what? This is so unique, and I can't ignore it because it's fresh, and there's something about it that really keeps me engaged. But let's now talk about the content matter. And to start here, I feel like going into this, you have to know that the focus is going to be this drug talk. It's known with the Griselda crew that this is the kind of content matter that they get into, where they're kind of taking you through the ins and the outs of the drug trade, the do's and do nots. Not only that, but I think what's more important is I would say not exactly what you're going to get, but how you're going to get it, how they're delivering these bars, because the beauty of this album is kind of the journey, the moments within it. So how do you feel about the content matter, and do you think that it maybe was leveled up from previous albums?
I don't think it was leveled up. I think that they have too many great projects in their catalog to be able to, say that this was the Griselda project that really pushed the boundaries on the content matter. Because if I want to talk about that, I'll talk about Tana Talk 3. I'll talk about, let's say Pray for Paris or even Fly God. So there's a couple of different projects that I think that, outshine it when it comes to the way that the content's being delivered. But nonetheless, like, I still enjoyed it. It wasn't the thing where I was blown away by it because I was getting, this completely, different type of storytelling, or, different types of imagery, or different types of, let's say, rhyme structures. It wasn't like that. For me, it was just, I knew what I was getting. I got it. It was received well, and it did its job. Like, that was the thing with this project, was you're going to go for the whole 30 tracks, and it's going to get refreshing because the features are going to bring in a new sort of take and a new sort of freshness to the track list. But for the most part, the content on the album is pretty stagnant.
Yeah,
It's mostly,
it does.
you know where the content actually gets pretty fun within the album? Within the skits, actually.
That's true.
So wait, hold on. I actually want to pull up a skit on side A. I believe it was on Margella Split Toes at the end, featuring Mac Homie, okay? And this was the whole thing of like where they were explaining how Richard Mille, the obviously the luxurious watch, is not pronounced Richard Mille.
Richard Mille.
Richard Mille. Like, you see,
Yeah.
that's the type of content I like within the album, and I feel as if that aspect of the project shined more than the actual
And it adds
coke talk.
culture. It shows
Absolutely.
that he's into, being this fashion icon, and that he's in tune with all of this luxury talk. And we get that where he's talking about Givenchy sweaters, hopping out of Mercedes CLSs. But what's interesting too is that on a song like Big Al, which is on side B, he's actually talking about the friends that he sadly lost that have passed away. He also gives a nice tribute to MF Doom. I thought that was super heartfelt from him.
True.
And a big standout for me was actually on the song Munch, where he's rapping about how some of his friends actually got life sentences in prison, and that's allowed him to actually enjoy his freedom and travel to Paris and actually play dice games at the Eiffel Tower and do like this extravagant shit, because he realizes that all of our time is limited and he has to live life to the fullest. So that was cool. Also, you get a lot of content matter, I would say, more than from Westside Gunn, with the features. Because if you look at Mac Homie, for example, on Best Dressed Demons, he's rapping about cultural appropriation and how Elvis Presley stole Little Walter's flow, and kind of getting into more philosophical stuff and more things that have, I would say, a deeper impact for the listener.
Yeah, I'm gonna get more into the bars and stuff that I had found within the feature list, because there's a lot of stuff to take out of it.
100%.
But for the most part, I think the content was good on this album. Again, wasn't anything revolutionary, wasn't anything that you could compare it to let's say Tana Talk 3 or Fly God from the Griselda crew. But for the most part, it did its job. It was entertaining, and it kept you all the way through for 30 songs. So I guess listen, there was a lot to the album, but let's actually move on to the features. This is a great place to start, because when you think about Westside Gunn, you can't think about him as a solo rapper on his project. This guy creates a crazy amount of features and allows them to all coherently come into one sound on an album. So when you saw this feature list, or let's say the first time you heard it, I'll ask you a nicer question. The first time you went through this feature list, you heard all the features. Who was one person that really stood out for you out of everyone within,
that's
within
so
the features?
tough. You've had amazing features from Jadakiss. You had Lil Wayne, who went absolutely crazy on Bash Money.
It was Bash Money.
And to be totally honest with you, the two artists that really stood out the most are more underrated acts. And that's Stove God Cooks, who had like 5 features on this thing, killed every single one, has these really impressive hooks where it's kind of like this 3-syllable pattern, really interesting stuff, and his voice has so much life to it. But the person who stole the show and who was actually, I would say, the main man on this album is Rome Streets. Really? And if you look at a song like Draymond, he has probably the best verse in the entire album for me, because if you look at the wordplay he uses, the rhyme scheme filled with these multi-syllabic rhymes, it's mind-blowing. And I'll actually read you a bar. He raps, "Death is at the door, I shoot the reaper through the peephole, I see no equal, I play the game on hard, don't need no cheat code." The way that he's using these rhymes and having these multi-syllable rhyme schemes, it's fucking impressive to me. It's mind-blowing. Not only that, but if you look at his crazy feature on the sinister sounding Eddie Kingston, he stays locked into one fierce
Eddie
flow.
Kingston's hard.
Yeah, and he raps, "Dropped all of my sins on the street corner and saved the blessings." And then he raps, "When my shit comes on, that's the best part." And that's true, because he bodied everything that he was on. And listen to Death and the Magician if you guys haven't already. Amazing underground project from this year. But he was a standout for me. Who would you say was your standout?
I got a couple I'm going to go through. First one is JLEC on Free Cutter. And
Big W.
First of all, I love the way he started off this verse. "If Allah shine, Cutter gon' shine. It's mathematical. Peace, God, keep your head up on your sabbatical." So I love the way he's able to use these syllables and match them perfectly within the line. Like, I would love to see a genius breakdown of the bars within this. Like, J Electronica always comes onto a track and not only adds knowledge, but does it in such a cool, nerdish way for me, because I start nerding out on the way that he's like the way that he's structuring his verses and the way that he's able to, give you these
triple entendres,
like quadruple entendres.
I know, man.
There's
it's
so
nuts.
much. It's so much to think about. But I'm actually gonna go on to Hell on Earth Part 2, which had Benny the Butcher and Conway the Machine. I'm a fan of the song. I think it was a good posse cut. Wasn't anything like war paint, like what I had gotten off of Burden of Proof, but still some highlights for me. So I'll start with Benny. Should have got a Grammy. Nah, fuck it though, because Royce and Freddie family ties. So it was cool to see how, he was like saying like, you know what, I should have gotten something for Burden of Proof. But it's all right, though, because at least, Freddie got something with Alfredo, and then Royce got something with the Allegory. Then you have Conway with a really nice double entendre here. "I got a shooter in New York. I call him Young Mellow. I got some rope in the trunk, tape, and one shovel." So I love the way that he's able to rhyme the Young Mellow with tape and one shovel at the end of the second line. So those were standouts for me. But how about anyone else that really stick out for you?
Yeah, definitely Jadakiss. I'm not sure which song he was on. I know it was on side A. But every time that I hear him, it's a breath of fresh air, and it's 100% guarantee that he's going to give you this very confident cadence and that the bars are going to hit. Like Jadakiss he has a different nature to him, and there's one dope punchline that came out of his verse that really stood out to me, and it's that kind of drug lingo that I love to hear on these Griselda albums. And the line was, "They wanted that Off-White way before Virgil's shit."
Yeah,
like
that's cool.
That shit is cold. I love it.
I fuck with it.
Apart from that, Mac Homie's verses were all all hitting for me as well. Also, Benny the Butcher on Claire's Back has a crazy bar. It's next level shit. He raps, I rode in 500 horses without the cowboy boots, talking about him driving his sports car. Like, this is the shit that I live for. This is the shit that really brings these albums to another level for me, because not every project is going to have bars on this level. But who do you think had the best feature? Did you like Tyler the Creator on the album?
Well, actually, let's talk about Tyler. Fuck, how did we almost get through the features and not
Because
talk
honestly,
about
it
Tyler?
wasn't as great as I thought it would be. It was kind of short-lived, to be honest.
Oh, I don't know. I think it was good. I love the way that he sort of came in and he was like
Goblin
kind of saying,
vibes.
yeah, it was sort of like, I'm just gonna fuck around here and I'm gonna drop something. But the verse isn't too long. I think it's actually on the same level as Westside Gunn. But for the most part, well, he actually has two verses on this. He has verse 1 and verse 3. So if I had to talk about the verse I liked most, I'm looking at them now. I'd probably say verse 1. How about you? What would you say is your favorite?
Probably verse 1, yeah.
Verse 1's
a bit
probably
longer.
better. But that's pretty cool, because Westside Gunn could have maybe taken the outro on this song, but ended up giving it to Tyler. So did you expect more from them, and maybe what could have improved from Tyler's feature?
I liked it. I preferred what they did on 327 off of Pray for Paris. I thought that was the better feature, but I do love kind of the murderous kind of persona that Tyler takes on here, talking about how like he's going so crazy that a doctor needs to give him a tranquilizer.
I'm hot, boy. I'm from the depths of hell where you can't survive. A cold day feel like a good oven when baking pie. So, and it's cool because he's delivering stuff like that.
It's playful.
And then you hear something like Igor, and it's completely two different sides of the spectrum. So, yes, Tyler did deliver, but it wasn't anything crazy. But overall, I think the features were great. Overall, you're going to go through this project and you're going to start to realize how the features are actually making this album more entertaining for you. Like, Westside Gunn did a great job at handpicking all of these features. Everything sounded like a real collaboration, and I love the fact that Westside Gunn knows what features to go get. Like, you don't have to go get anyone too crazy, like, for the most part. Even the 2 Chainz feature was fucking fantastic.
A new flow from him there. That was awesome.
I really did enjoy that. So it was cool. He had a great amount of Griselda members on this. He had some more mainstream acts as well, like Tyler and 2 Chainz. And then obviously you have legends like Jadakiss and JLEC on this.
And
so
like you were saying, I
nice.
thought the features were great because they all had the same mission. They were all rapping about the same subject matter, and that was
coherent.
That's what makes the album cohesive. And shout out to everybody who was on here. They all did their thing, and to me, in all honesty, not a single whack feature. Not a single one.
No, definitely not. But let's actually move on to the production. What could you expect going into a Westside Gunn album, and maybe even a Griselda album? Because you listen to them, they don't sound similar, but they're in that realm of underground, grimy Derringer beats. So how did you like this, and how did you like the fact that there was so many different producers on this? Like, you got Nick Craven on this, you have The Alchemist, you have Madlib, you have Derringer, Conduct. There's so many different producers on this.
Big Uncle Al was on here too.
And yet it sounds so coherent. So how did you fuck with that? And were you impressed by the overall showcase on the production side?
Yeah, I loved it because, like, despite the variety of producers you had on here, when you're listening to the instrumentals transition from one song to the next, it almost sounds like one person produced all the beats because they're all within that horror-esque soundscape. And not only that, but I also love how bleak they are, but also elegant at the same time, because a lot of these, I would say, are kind of the sample-filled loops where you're kind of hearing an old soul sample. And I mean, honestly, you don't get tired of them, even though it's a loop that kind of is repetitive for the most part.
Yeah.
You don't get too sick of it. And I love that, in modern hip hop nowadays, most beats are carried by these heavy drum patterns. And that was nowhere near the focus on this album.
It was not the case. And I don't think it'll ever be the case with Griselda because they produce their albums differently. There's a different type of feel to their albums. And that's what I think I enjoyed about this. I'm actually going to talk about Richies, produced by Madlib.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a fucking surprise to me. I'm like, whoa, okay. And I think that this was a snippet at one point, but I never ended up hearing it, but ended up making the album. So were you satisfied with it, especially knowing what Madlib does with underground classic projects like, let's say, Piñata and Bandana? And, do you think that it was one of the best produced beats on the whole album?
I don't know if it was one of my favorite produced beats. Like, to be honest, it was good, but I don't know. It wasn't anything crazy. I think that I liked The vintage sample that was on there was very bluesy. Also a nice subtle guitar that came through. But overall, it didn't blow me away, to be honest with you. Like there was other productions that really shined harder than that one.
Okay, so give me your top three. Give me like your three, no order, but like three beats that really stuck with you within it.
I would say that one of them is actually Survivor Series 95, where you have these atmospheric chords.
Well,
and
that song's like 7 minutes long, and it keeps you going for 7 minutes.
I know, man. It's you have like this Miami Vice kind of vibe going on, and a beautiful loop by Jay Versace, who also had some production credits on Pray for Paris. Love what he's doing. Super underrated producer. Also, Eddie Kingston was another shout out.
Eddie Kingston was nice.
Produced by J.R. Swifts, and the way the beat sounds, you have this piano riff that dominates, but it sounds like 20 keys are being played at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a mind fuck. Also, Bash Money had a really nice dark beat.
Bash Money sounded like something, let's say, off of... Like Bash Money was the closest thing if I were to have to like take that track and put it on Pray for Paris. I feel as if that would have been a great track to put on there. But I want to talk about one beat, and it's actually Free Cutter again by Conductor. And
that was great.
I love that xylophone that plays in the background because it's so mellowed out, but it's a bit trippy. So like if you're a smoker and like you enjoy like smoking out to your music, this is going to be one of the best tracks on the whole album for you because it's so like... It's so trippy, but at the same time, like you're getting two great fucking verses from both JLEC and Westside Gunn. So I love the way that was set up. Shout out to Nick Raven because he's actually a producer from Montreal, and he actually did Rest in Peace Bergdorf. So shout out to Nick Raven. He's fucking fantastic. Check out his catalog if you have not.
Yeah, he's done a lot of great work with Ransom, so check out their stuff together. Apart from that, production-wise, I just love that this album feels vintage. I feel like I'm listening to a 90s East Coast hip-hop album, and a lot of that is because a lot of these beats are kind of engulfed in this boom bap type of sound, I would say. So overall, I think that the production was great.
It was great. It wasn't anything that would blow you out of the water. Like it wasn't, I would say, like a Donda level produced album, but for the most part, like it keeps you entertained for the amount of tracks that's in it. And the fact that there was so many great producers on this and they were all able to come up with one coherent sound for those 30 songs is impressive. And I mean, the caliber of producers on here, it's just fucking ridiculous. I mean, The Alchemist, Madlib, Derringer, Conductor. There's just, there's just Jay Versace's fucking fantastic as well. Like there's just way too many good producers. But let's actually talk about the instant replay values. So let me ask you, how is this going to stick through your rotation, and do you think it's one of the best of the year?
It's interesting because like with past Westside Gunn releases like Fly God, Pray for Paris, I feel like those were seriously big in my rotation because the track lists weren't all that long, and I feel like they felt like more cohesive listens because they weren't 33 song albums.
No, for sure.
So with this project, it's going to end up being one of those cases where I kind of pluck out songs. It's meant to be that way.
It's the nature of the album, though, because how are you going to go through this, let's say, like once a day? Like, it's a lot of fucking material.
Almost 2 hours.
It's almost like it's a movie. You know what I'm trying to say? So it's going to be harder to digest because there's so much material to get through. And for the most part, like, you will find some songs that sound similar to some songs. True. Because it's the nature of the project. So I think the approach with this album is, take what you like with it, put it into your playlist, and then go back every once in a while and find new songs that you find yourself falling in love with.
I want your top 5. If you could only keep 5 songs from both sides, what are you taking?
Okay, so
5 tracks
in no particular
order. Just
I'm
5
taking,
songs.
Okay, hold on. I'm taking Bash Money for sure. I'm taking Free Cutter for sure. I'm taking Hell on Earth Part 2 for sure.
Banger.
I'm taking... hold on. I'm gonna be taking. Okay, let me go to the side A. Wait, I have 2, so I got 2 right now.
2 left?
I have 3 left. Okay, so
You said Bash Money, Free Cutter,
Margello Split Toes.
Okay.
I'll do Draymond as well, and then I'll do 716 Mile featuring Boldy James.
Shout out Boldy James. Did his thing.
That was a fantastic song. How about you?
Do you still think he has the best Griselda album of the year?
With Bo Jackson?
With Bo Jackson, yeah.
Potentially.
I think he does.
Potentially.
I think, La Máquina by Conway the Machine was great,
but
too.
That's the thing is that every year you're in this situation where, like, well, look at 2020, right? Like, the price of tea in China, like, that
was a different level run for Griselda.
But that's what
what
I'm trying to say? Like, they're burden of proof. Like,
That was different. Pray for Paris.
There was just way too much good Griselda material to come out. So I think it's that situation again this year. But for the most part, the one album I was actually disappointed with from Griselda was The Plugs I Met Too. Like that was maybe the one that
Still some bangers, but didn't live up to the hype.
It didn't live up to my rotation. But
yeah,
how about you?
My top 5 songs I would say is definitely Draymond with Stove God Cooks and Rome Streets, one of my favorites. Bash Money, of course, with Lil Wayne. Love to hear him on this very dusty, gritty type of beat. So that's 2 songs right there. Then give me, Survivor Series 95. Loved all the verses on there.
I don't. You see, that was the only thing I wasn't sure about that because of the length of the track. It's just too long for me.
Okay, fair enough. Free Cutter, and finally something back on side A. Probably Vogue Cover.
Yeah,
I like that one a lot. Yeah.
Okay, how about Margiela Split Toes? I feel as if that's one of my favorites from the whole album.
Yeah, because that passage with the
not only the passage, but I love the way
as
the
a
beats
song,
are.
it's good too.
I love the song actually. It's the one that I gravitated towards the quickest when I was listening to side A. But let's actually get on to the overall thoughts now. So at least from where I stand with this album, I think that this will be good in my rotation. You know, the thing is like when you're talking about the overall thoughts and when you're talking about also what you're going on with the instant replay value, those are 2 very important categories because it's like, how is this album going to fucking live with you? So what are you saying? Are we giving this a good or great rating for the instant replay value?
Instant replay value.
What's going on?
I think it's a good rating just because, like I said, I won't be revisiting all of these tracks, and there are a lot of them that I won't revisit, but the ones that I do really enjoy, I'll be bumping like for a long time. I think that going into this, it's a great album because, you know, Westside Gunn gives you this A-list stacked feature list. He gives you these dusty samples that sound like they're from a different era. And you have this coke talk. You have these street hooks, which are very different than anything else you're hearing. And the only thing is that, yes, he does get outshined by his features. Yes, his delivery is sometimes nauseating to listen to for, you know, over an hour long. But overall, I think that he gave a great project. And yeah, I would say it was pretty cool.
It was a good project overall. Like I don't know. I'm between. Fuck, what do we do here? Is it between good or great? Because you could say that maybe, you know, the content and the artist performance itself were good, but then the features and the production were great, and then you have the replay value which is being good. So, what are you saying, bro? I'll leave you up to this. I'll leave you up. What's the final score, man?
Is it good or great? That's a good question.
Leave this in the comment sections, by the way, guys. Let us know how you feel.
That's so tough, man. I mean, a lot of these songs really had me making that fucking stank face, man. Like, I'll be honest with you. I was nodding my head violently.
I think we're going to give it a great rating. Fuck it. I think we give it a great rating.
But it is in that middle.
It is in the middle point, but we give it a great rating.
It's a light great rating, yeah.
It's fucking nice, though. It's a great listen. Like, that's exactly like why I think we're going to have to give it a great rating is because it's a great listen. For the amount of material you have on here and the fact that you're going to be entertained throughout all of this from the side A to side B is super fucking impressive. As Lou said, you know, sometimes the Westside Gunn delivery gets a bit iffy at times, especially when you have that much material. But for the most part, you're still entertained by it.
Very cinematic experience.
And not only that, but I love the fucking feature list on here. I think they add so much to this project. As I said before, you have so many great fucking producers on here. So production was great. And then obviously, as we had mentioned, there's so much material on here that the nature of the project is the instant replay is actually going to be good because you got to grab a couple of these songs into your playlist, go back when you can, and see what you love. So, were your expectations met, bruv? How did you feel about this?
They were met, but I did prefer the side A versus the side B. I felt like the side B felt more epilogue-y. It felt kind of slower in tempo, and you got these really worn out verses from Gunn. I felt like he had too much time, and side A was more balanced. You had more features kind of taking the dominating presence of the song. So side A was superior to me, I will say that. And I don't know, overall, I do feel like it was a very cinematic experience with all the snippets, with all the vocal passages. And this does take me back to a different era in hip-hop. And that's why I appreciate it so much, because it doesn't feel like it's part of this era. And that's why I love Griselda, because they're kind of the resurgence of that 90s gritty hip-hop that both you and I love.
Absolutely. They're keeping the torch alive, guys. So listen, let us know how you feel about this new Westside Gunn project in the comment section. Always love having conversation with you guys. And if you're new to NFR, we're doing this on the weekly, so we're gonna keep you updated with everything hip hop related. So the rollouts to the reviews, album narratives, everything series. We're working on a daily here, guys. So subscribe if you have not already. And it's always a pleasure doing these reviews for you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you for watching the video. It's always a pleasure doing content for you guys. Listen, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel because we're doing album reviews, and we actually have our series called Everything We Know, where we take you guys through the whole album rollout of the hottest releases of the year. Not only that, guys, but our Patreon plan is now live. You guys can access that in the bio. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.